Wait, he don't have a nose neither?
No.
Wait, I have a question. Why is his nose gone?
You have two reasons. The first one, because the erosion factors. This is the weakness point of the statue, because erosion factors, it's broke the nose. And maybe the second reason, because any king after this king tried to broke his nose to be the strongest one.
Oh. So just the ego thing, huh?
Yes.
Why is her nose cut off?
Who broke a nose? The historian Makrizi from Islamic era. Write inside his book and say, a man his name Sa'im al-Dahr do this. But why? Why Sa'im al-Dahr do this? Because he won't be proof. For some people, it is just a statue, just stone, not God. For this, he just broke a nose and say he can protect himself. What he do? He just a stone.
Oh, so he was trying to prove that the statue was not a god.
Not a God.
So he broke the nose.
The videos you just watched are taken from the recent ishowspeed livestream in Egypt, where local Egyptian experts were brought in to explain aspects of Egyptian history.
Is that right?
During that live stream, one question came up more than once: the broken noses seen across ancient Egyptian sculptures and artifacts. The immediate response most people sense is that the full truth is not being told about those damaged features. The widely held theory, particularly within Black and Pan-African scholarly and cultural circles, is that many noses were intentionally damaged in order to obscure African or Nubian physical characteristics of ancient Egyptians.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Because black people kind of got like a bigger nose, you know what I'm saying, than most other races. And in the American history book, you look at an Egyptian, they got the white man. You know what I'm saying?
To obscure African or Nubian physical characteristics of ancient Egyptians. Over time, a lighter-skinned, Arabized or Europeanized image of Egypt has been normalized to the point where it is now treated as the unquestionable truth. This is why modern films, textbooks, and museums overwhelmingly portray ancient Egyptians as light-skinned, even when their portrayal contradicts large bodies of historical and archaeological evidence. I'm sure this won't be news to many of you that are watching my channel, but there is a discussion here that goes beyond the broken noses. What this is highlighting is a much deeper ongoing problem across the continent of Africa, one that persists to this day. And that is exactly what we're going to discuss in this video, the idea of whose history becomes dominant, because what happens today determines how we move forward into the future right now. Versions of history that have non-African interests at heart is part of the reason why Africa still has many struggles today. So if you're interested in understanding the link between these broken noses and what's happening today, then this is the video for you.
Let's
If you
hear
don't
it.
know me, my name is TJ. I'm
Shouts out.
Nigerian and British mixed. And on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics.
Nigerian and British mix, nigga. What does that mean? What does that really mean? Shouts out to the Subi shop.
So when it comes to the ishowspeed broken nose question, it is important to be precise. It is not unreasonable for someone to say that the deliberate breaking of noses to conceal African features is a theory rather than an absolute certainty. So we'll give them that. What matters is whether all credible theories are presented honestly. There is substantial evidence that ancient Egyptian civilizations were deeply connected to Nubia and a broader Nile Valley African culture. Nubia, which includes regions of modern-day Sudan, was home to powerful civilizations such as Kush, and Sudan today contains more pyramids than Egypt, though the pyramids in Egypt are larger and more globally publicized. Scholars widely acknowledge that ancient Egypt did not exist in isolation. The further south along the Nile you go into regions associated with Kemet and Kush, the clearer it becomes that ancient Egyptian civilization was part of a broader African cultural and political continuum. This is why it is reasonable to frame African origin theories as viable, evidence-based perspectives rather than fringe claims. Telling the truth requires intellectual honesty, whether the exact answer is definitely known or not. At the very least, a responsible explanation presents multiple credible interpretations. If damage status of these noses is discussed, then all major explanations should be included. We can talk about erosion. We can talk about one leader or another feeling jealous of previous leaders and breaking noses. Sure, but the deliberate defacement aimed at altering identity must be included at the very least. When significant theory is omitted entirely, that omission itself becomes dishonesty. It's a lie of omission. And this same pattern of omission appears again and again, even up to modern times.
570 Nubian artifacts that were looted by the RSF militia were just recovered in Sudan. This is extremely important because this is the part that most people don't really understand about this war. And I'm going to get to that in a second. The RSF didn't loot these artifacts by accident. They stole them as a deliberate attempt to erase Sudan's African history. They didn't just attack our people. They targeted our museums. They broke into our cultural institutions and treated our history as contraband when they sold it through smuggling networks for mere pennies. And here's the part that most people don't understand about this war. These acts aren't random casualties of war. They're intentional acts of cultural genocide. Because when you destroy the physical proof of people's history, you're weakening their claim to their identity, their sovereignty, and most importantly, their land.
Man, I just imagine like anywhere you go in this world, history has probably been tweaked with, bro, and it's not the real truth. You know, anywhere you go, bro.
These artifacts aren't just priceless. They're definitive proof that Sudan has an ancient, powerful African history.
Sudan.
Long before colonization.
So it's more pyramids in Sudan than it is in Egypt.
That's why right now it's extremely vital for us to remember exactly who the hell we are. Because when you destroy people's history, they become easier to remove, easier to divide,
control,
and easier to erase.
I just want to take a quick moment to thank everybody that has subscribed to my Substack. I really appreciate the support. If you're out there and you want to support this message of African subjects like this, but if you support any financial, even free, a clear example can be seen here in the following article, which I will quote directly before explaining the deeper implications. Humanitarian aid cuts push millions deeper into hunger amid rising violence and population displacement in West and Central Africa. The United Nations World Food Programme warns that without urgent resources and action, the most vulnerable people in West and Central Africa are headed for yet another dire year. A staggering 55 million people in the region are expected to endure crisis levels of hunger or worse during June and August lean season. Over 13 million children are also expected to suffer from malnutrition in 2026.
What's the real purpose of the United Nations, bro? If all they're gonna do is warn people, United Nations, that means nothing, bro. All they not here to actually unite the nations. Nations are still at war with each other. This, that, and the third. They're warning, 55 million people in Africa are about to be endure crisis levels of hunger. What are y'all gonna do to help though? Not a damn thing.
Vital humanitarian aid is a transformative and stabilizing force in volatile contexts, said Sarah Longfield, Deputy Regional Director for West and Central Africa. The reduced funding we saw in 2025 has deepened hunger and malnutrition across the region. As needs outpace funding, so too does the risk of young people falling into desperation.
So who is funding this though?
It's critical that we support communities in crisis so that rampant hunger doesn't drive further unrest, displacement, and conflict across the region. You see, here it's almost like the famine creates the conflict. And this is why this article appears so compassionate, at least on the surface. It emphasizes the urgent need for aid and frames the reduction of humanitarian funding as the central problem. But the article
who's funding it
completely misses the big issue. It avoids confronting the root cause creating the need for aid in the first place. And I find that misleading. Hunger, displacement, and instability across West and Central Africa is being driven primarily by armed conflict. The regions referred to in the article are in particular the Sahel region, which also bleed into a slightly broader context. This includes Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, and Cameroon. This is why the critical question becomes unavoidable. Where does this conflict originate from? The answer consistently points towards prolonged Western interference, military intervention, and proxy warfare. The Sahel
I
has
believe
become
it.
a front line of resistance against Western dominance, with conflicts sustained through indirect support, arms flows, and geopolitical manipulation. The famine is downstream of that. And this is why this narrative should raise alarm bells. The idea that groups operating in some of the poorest countries on earth often possess advanced weapons, including drones and complex military systems that require training, logistics, and external support, is extremely problematic. This level of armament does not emerge organically from impoverished communities that emerge from the bush. This is why these narratives need to be challenged. While many individuals working within humanitarian organizations are undoubtedly motivated by genuine concern for human suffering, there has been credible allegations and documented controversies linking some of these aid structures to the very conflicts they later claim to mitigate. This includes accusations that funding streams, logistics support, or institutional overlap have indirectly benefited arms groups operating in destabilized regions. Even senior figures within the United States political system have publicly alleged links between Western-backed aid and development frameworks, as well as training armed or enabling militant groups. This includes USAID, and this raises serious questions about incentives and accountability. Humanitarian aid often functions as a temporary stabilizer, and I agree with temporary solutions when things go really wrong. What I'm against is ongoing, prolonged status quo of aid being how Africa functions perpetually, which is what has been the case for decades now. It seems there is very little incentive to fully expose the mechanisms that generate this conflict. In fact, addressing root causes would undermine the very systems that justify the ongoing intervention, funding cycles, and influence without confronting how conflicts are financed,
Man,
trained, and politically enabled.
man, all these countries are in cahoots with each other, bro. You know what I'm saying? They're all in cahoots with each other on an elite level, if you want to put it like that, bro. And yeah.
Influence without confronting how conflicts are financed, trained, and politically enabled. Genuine resolution remains structurally out of reach. You see, in the West, public opinion still matters. If citizens fully understood the extent to which their governments contribute to the destabilization across Africa,
Right.
political support for such policies would likely become far weaker. This
Man, see, but the thing is the citizens, the people, we don't have no control over none of this, bro. And it's like that across the entire world. That's why I said all these countries are in cahoots with each other, bro. The citizens, the people of the world, that we don't have control over this. You know what I'm saying? The governments is what has control, bro. They the ones got the control, bro. The citizens, oh, we can't vote for different policies, and we don't even understand the policies. And it's designed that way for a specific reason, bro. To keep us out of the know, to keep control, to keep us divided, you know what I'm saying? Like, they the ones control it, bro.
across Africa, political support for such policies would likely become far weaker. This is why the end result often resembles Libya, where external intervention led to state collapse, long-term instability, and the removal of Gaddafi under the guise of humanitarian concern. The outcome in Libya right now is still dire, far from the promises of the liberation that the United States and France claimed would happen after Gaddafi was removed. Across the Sahel, local leaders like Ibrahim Traore are frequently blamed for famine and displacement and conflict, while the external forces that helped create those conditions escape complete accountability. So this is why the issue of ancient Egypt's erased identity and modern Africa's manufactured crisis are directly connected. Both rely on controlling narratives, omitting context, and re-establishing truth to justify dominance. After ancient Egypt's peak, later societies inherited its monuments and its prestige without replicating its technological sophistication. By the time of Cleopatra, Egypt was ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty of Greek origin, and the monumental achievements of earlier eras were no longer being matched. You see, imperial continuity matters. The same mindset that allowed later rulers to claim ancient Egyptian greatness without acknowledging its African roots persists today. Narratives are shaped to legitimize control, extract resources, and maintain power. Africa's future depends on narrative sovereignty. So,
Man, you don't think they know how these pyramids were made and this, that, and the third, bro? They know. The people don't know. We don't know. They're not gonna tell us ever. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna act like they just don't know forever, bro. This world is so advanced nowadays, bro. They know how this stuff was created and this, that, and the third, bro. Like I said, they're all in cahoots with each other, man. Even the small governments in Africa, they're still in cahoots. I think every government has to check in with the United Nations, don't they? Like, they all operate through them in some type of way. Like,
matched. You see, imperial continuity matters. The same mindset that allowed later rulers to claim ancient Egyptian greatness without acknowledging its African roots persists today. Narratives are shaped to legitimize control, extract resources, and maintain power. Africa's future depends on narrative sovereignty. Supporting African-led sovereignty movements, including the Alliance of Sahel States, is essential for reclaiming truth on the ground. Africa must define its own history, define its own challenges, and articulate its own solutions. And this is why calling out hypocrisy is not optional. Whether external powers attempt to control African narratives or Egyptian history, or whoever external forces is trying to profit from the instability that is ongoing in Africa right now, the contradictions must be exposed. The African stories told by Africans must become the dominant historical and political record. The empowerment of African youth and future generations depends on that truth, agency, and courage to challenge the inherited falsehoods. This is not symbolic. It is foundational to Africa's long-term liberation and development. I would love to know what you guys' opinion on this matter is. Please.
yeah, man, y'all let me know what y'all think, man. I think he hit it pretty good, bro. He says that the Western countries or whatnot, policies in the rest of the world is affecting Africa. You know what I'm saying? And the development, which I agree with. You know what I'm saying? We the people, we have no control over this stuff, bro. We don't have. Everybody's focused on their own selves, which makes sense because it's a struggle out here, bro. You know what I'm saying? We are focused on our own selves, meaning we have to work our jobs, take care of our family. We don't have time to be worried about what's going on in the country all the way on the other side of the world, bro. Like, that's just not our concerns day to day, you know? And understand that no one has time to understand these policies and go through them and sit down, and we got to make money so that we can survive, so that we can put food in our stomach, bro. Like this, we living in a real matrix, bro. You know what I'm saying? And things like the United Nations, bro, is perfect proof of that. Perfect evidence of that. You know what I'm saying? Because every country has to check in with them on a global scale, and they have complete control over everything, bro. This is a matrix, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though, man. We on the road to 100K. Okay, if you don't hit that like button, subscribe button, and turned on all notifications, slap the dog shit about yourself, because that's the first thing you should have did when you clicked on this video. I'll get at you on the next one, and I'm gone. TYP the name.